Hello everyone, hope you're doing well, hope you can after yourselves. Welcome to another episode of Behind the Curtain, where we discuss more about some of the topics that we've discussed in other episodes. We get to meet new people and we get to share some important messages with you. We've got another guest speaker to take part, so as I always say, I don't want to give you information about them, especially that you hear it from the source. So instead, I'm going to hand over to today's guest. Could you let us know a bit about you?
Hello guys, my name is Sachin Gupta. I'm 24 years young and I study mathematics at Brunel University.
Oh, perfect, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. It was great to know more about you. We're going to dive into some of the questions that we've got for you today because I guess first thing to sort of start off with is you have your own podcast. Let's start there. So could you let us know a bit more about your podcast? What do you do? Who do you bring on? What do you discuss? Things like that.
So, I've been a professional wrestling fan ever since I was 7 years old. I would have thought I've grown out of it by now, but the more and more I get into it, the more and more people I speak to, whether that may be in America, maybe that may be in Britain, I just really like enjoying learning about the whole industry as a whole. And who I bring on my podcast are pro wrestlers, mainly from the British independent scene, but I had brought on an American lad before because we just had kind of a lot in common personally. So what we talk about mainly is just their gym routines, what moves have they found pretty hard to perform at first, like what steps they made as a beginner, and how they wish they kind of did that differently, who they tape study, what is tape studying, so who do they watch, what do they watch inside of the matches other than just being entertained mindlessly. So it's more or less along those lines. We do talk about other stuff as well.
Oh, cool. You didn't say what the name of your podcast is.
My intro, so before I talk about my podcast, I initially made the YouTube channel just to vlog my own pro wrestling journey, as I was on a sandwich year this year, as I'll just be taking exams. I had time to do other stuff as well. So the intro that I use for my videos is "What's up, beautiful people?" That's where you might know me from, and "What's up, beautiful" is just kind of the podcast name. It just rolled off the tongue, to be fair, and honestly, I don't regret it one bit.
Oh, perfect. And I definitely agree that we from time to time have different podcasters on, and we always share that doing podcasting is a very fun thing. While it can be quite intimidating or quite stressful, sort of think about like how people will like it, what you can do, where you should post it, how you're going to market it. The people that distribute the podcast that we record, Buzzsprout, they have like a video series on like if you're interested in podcasting, like what you can get involved in. And again, we've mentioned them before in other episodes. But the really cool thing that they do there is they had like a video of like some of the concerns people have about starting podcasts, and they said the most important thing for you is to just start, because you'll be surprised of how like you'll be in your head thinking, this person might not like it, or this person might say this, or I'm not sure if people are going to really engage with it or things like that. And we've mentioned before. Very quickly, just like the analytics of podcasting, that most podcasts don't get past like their first or second episode because they're so caught up on the numbers, how many people watch it, how many people listen to it. And there's no need for you, especially your early stage, to be so concerned with that. Yes, it is important if you're trying to grow and see like what works and what doesn't, but it's very rare for you to sort of have the best like podcast to begin with. Like, you'll have to learn what your audience wants, what they like, whether they like longer podcasts, whether they like shorter ones, and then just go from there. We're gonna go to the next question now, which I think for anyone watching, especially at this time, is quite important because at this moment of recording, we're currently in June. If you're an A-level student, you would have picked the universities that you're interested in and you want to go to. You would have, I assume at this point, finished your exams from memory serves. You would have finished all your like GCSEs and your A-level stuff, and you'll be in the process of just waiting for results day in August. So yeah, the next question is basically, for anyone who's sort of watching, why, especially I think after everything that sort of happened with COVID and how, it's changed, well, it changed everything, but especially the university experience has changed from what it was before. What would you say is the purpose for attending university?
Networking, meeting people. I believe university is a place to have your thoughts, opinions, and beliefs challenged, as well as, hear from other people what theirs is. Plus, to obviously develop your range of interests, as once you get into the working world, you're not going to have a lot of time to really do that. So back to what you're saying about podcasting, a lot of people don't really know this, but this is my third attempt trying to start a podcast. See, the first time I tried doing it, I was at a university called Surrey University, and I tried doing one there, hence why in the first minute I was testing the microphone, because the whole reason why it didn't really go well was because I wasn't really talking into the microphone really well. I didn't know that until very, very later on, as soon as I was recording, and I'm thinking, oh, I can't do this, I can't balance this, I can't do this, blah, 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 negative thoughts. List goes on. Then I tried a second podcast. That was during COVID. I didn't really know what to talk about. I thought, hey, look, I'm not that much of an interesting guy. Let me just bring on a bunch of interesting guys. So I don't think I'm the only one that has this problem, but if you're in COVID, you probably were a little bit social media addicted. So I got caught up in the comparing myself to other people. Oh, they're 24 and they're driving fast cars. I'm 24 and broke, blah, blah, blah. But then that was probably the reason why I failed as well, because I had a scarcity mindset when it came to finding who to bring on and what to talk about. Now my third one, this is something that I've been wanting to do for a very, very long time. Shout out to Chris Van Vliet. He's a famous wrestling podcaster who I've been wanting to do something similar compared to his for a very, very long time, but with the local lads from the British wrestling scene primarily. And I can't wait to say this, but Jeffrey, do you know that meme that went around, the John Cena meme? The one where it was like, he had a doppelganger, the Black John Cena. I'm announcing that I would say in the next week or two, I'll be uploading my podcast with him.
Oh, wow, congratulations.
Yeah.
That's really good, man. That's really good.
Yeah, I didn't think we'd really hit it off. I remember meeting him. It was at a WWE NXT UK. For those that don't know what that is, that was the UK's version of WWE's developmental brand. They recently folded in 2022 around August time. And I met him just outside. I'm thinking, oh my God, it's Black John Cena. And then we just hit it off, and I was rambling about fitness, and I'm just surprised that we hit it off really well, despite the fact I was kind of interrupting him watching the matches and stuff. And on that podcast, we're talking about gym equipment, as he is a certified personal trainer as well. Shout out to any of you guys that are playing a sport at the university. You guys are going to want to hear this. And yeah, I can't wait to release it.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's really good. And I think it's quite important because, a lot of people think, even like you were saying, like if your podcast is one where you bring people on, that you can't like message, or like you can't, if you're at an event that, I don't know, there's like this person, whether you're into like wrestling or gaming or whatever, like you can't go up to them and say, hi, I'd love to have you on my podcast, or like I've got this podcast that I do, we do this. I don't know, remember what episode, but in one of our old episodes, we were talking about, like, literally what you said about, like, networking, and university is a good place for that. And I said that most of the people that, when we started, I think most of the guests were either people that we knew or friends of friends. Now, like, most of the people on the podcast, yes, they're still sort of like friends of friends or friends, but some of them are people that I have no relation to. I've never met them before in my life, or sometimes I have, and I've literally just turned around and said, hey, you know what? I've got a podcast that I run. This is like, I can send you more information. I'd love to have you on. This is what we could talk about. And yeah, it's I think, especially for not necessarily like, if you have to be professional when you're like speaking to these people. But I think the most important thing that these people care about is your passion. So like what you're saying, like if you are not generally interested in whatever your podcast, and even like when people say like gaining traction for your podcast, that you have to think about it like that. Even like with marketing or social media stuff, it's about you're not thinking from the perspective of like yourself. You have to think from your audience. So who does your audience want to hear from? What sort of topics do your audience want to like listen to? For me, that's quite simple because I'm currently a student. I've been through some of the stuff that we've spoken about on the podcast, but there are some topics that I don't really know much about. So, for example, like I mentioned before, we did the women's networking event. Like from the get-go of organising that, I said I don't want to host it, not because like of any like bad thing like that, but it was because I'm not a woman and I can't, like, no matter how hard I try, I will never understand what women go through. So I said it'll be better to have a woman to do that. For some of the other episodes we've had, like where we're talking about things like mental health and like psychology and things like that. One of the people who helps up, one of the co-hosts and directors pick up the mic, Samuel, like that's his degree. So I let him lead on that because that's his specialty. If it's environmentalism, then usually I lead on that because that's my specialty. So it's always about like people just want to know the passion. If you're passionate about it, they'll bring you on, they'll speak to you, they'll be interested in connecting with you as well. But yeah, we're gonna go on to the next question that I've got here. And I think it sort of fits into what you're talking about. University, it fits in also because we have, if you haven't watched it, I definitely recommend. We have our series on societies at universities called Society Spotlight, where we spotlight a society for that episode. We learn more about them, what they do, why you should join their society. You've spoken a lot about that you're interested in self-improvement or discovery. What are some societies? They don't necessarily, like, if you want to mention one specific to Brunel, you can. But I know, like, for example, like most universities will have their own sort of like similar or the exact same society there. Whether it's, I don't know, like most universities have Afro-Caribbean society. That obviously depends on where you are in the UK, but a lot of the societies that we're mentioning, even though they're specific to just Brunel, there might be one at your university, and if not, you could just set one up. So yeah, what societies would you recommend?
I'm not part of any in particular,
Okay.
But that's a good question. I would say anything to do with martial arts,
Okay.
because I mean, this is not really on the topic of self-help and self-improvement. Self-improvement, for those that are pretty new to it, is more like getting your mental health in check, meditating, cold showering, exercising. Like loads of people do ask me, I'm depressed, what should I do? I'm saying, hey, how much do you exercise? How much do you journal? And how much do you meditate? And that's mainly where it lies. There's obviously a bunch of other stuff too. I haven't looked into mental health in that just that field alone, but it's more or less like how you do one thing is how you do everything. So back to what you were saying about societies, I would definitely say do some sport, man. Do some sport, okay? It's always good to go outside. It's a lovely day outside. I was just playing football with some of the Turkish. Were they tourists?
No.
With the red badge?
Yeah, sorry, I should give context. So if you're a Brunel student and you're still on campus, you might have seen loads of people like wearing lanyards. They're basic. So Brunel has a summer school that they run. So they bring external students from sort of like all over the world. So I think last week they had students from Japan. This week they've got like there's a plethora. If you're on campus, you've been on campus over the summer, you'll know what I'm talking about. But yeah, so they do a summer school. So those some of them are like Brunel students who are like volunteer or like are getting paid to sort of manage the students that attend. But yeah, a lot of them are international students, not necessarily, and that's like one sort of nice thing to say about it. They're not necessarily students who are just about to go to university. So they are usually students that, their schools maybe have a connection with Brunel or things like that, and then they sort of work with the university to come along and speak about it. So they're from the summer school. But yeah. But yeah, I think, like you were saying, it is true to mention that that not like I think sometimes people think like I was literally listening to shout out to another podcast, Diary of the CEO, which Simon Sinek, if I mentioned him in the student guide, but podcast that we run, but he basically was saying in this like clip I was watching him where he was on the show, because I also didn't realise he'd been there multiple times, but he was saying that there's a lot of focus on like when people exercise, it's like I have to exercise because like I want to lose weight, or I have to, you know, typical summer thing, summertime, if I'm a guy, I got to get out there with my six pack, I got to look, you know, really like ripped and all of this stuff. And he was saying like, no, that's not the best way to think about like exercise or to do things for your health. So he was saying for him, and you know, it's always up to the, and he even said it there, like it's up to the individual, but his recommendation is seeing it that you're doing it for someone else. So not necessarily saying like, oh, I have to go to the gym because, you know, my partner or my girlfriend or my boyfriend or, you know, whoever, you know, they've said that, you know, I'm looking a bit chubby or whatever. He's saying it's more of like, oh, well, if your best friend or your partner or like someone in your office, you know, they're going to gym classes or they're doing like a sport and they're doing it by themselves, especially if you're at university, you know, you might be in a friendship group living on campus. You've got a friend who's a part of like a sports society and they're literally the only one in your friendship group that's going. He was saying, make it about them. So you're going to support them in their activity. He was saying if he makes it about himself, he usually doesn't do it, which I think a lot of people can relate to. Of, you know, you might say, I'm going to start going to the gym, and you'll literally maybe go for like a month, maybe a week or two, and then you'll sort of be like, you know what, I'm super busy, I can't make it, or things like that. But you're saying when you make it about someone else, you're sort of telling yourself that, hey, I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this because, you know, there's someone that I care about that's interested in this stuff. So I'm spending time with them. And I'm doing these sports, I'm learning about these things, I'm sort of partaking of it with them.
I wouldn't really say you're doing it because you're caring about somebody that's interested in it. That's kind of not really the best way to go about it itself, because if you kind of spend too much time, well, how can I phrase this? It more or less comes back down to being authentic. Like, I get what you mean. Obviously, if you do it for yourself, you won't really have that same drive as if you're doing it for somebody else. Like, with me being in shape, personally, for me, it's just to build those habits. It's more or less to build those habits and allow yourself to know what's right and what's wrong early on in your life. So that's kind of the way how I'm putting it right now. At the same time as well, I'll say I'm kind of carb cycling at the moment with my diet. So I'm eating carbs on one day and I'm eating no carbs on another day. But at the same time, on my YouTube channel where I have my podcast, I do sometimes wrestle myself. And I'm only 56 kilograms. And that's the lightest that has like existed to my knowledge about the British independence scene. I've been to most dojos throughout, like, since my exams are finished, and I'm the lightest there and the shortest there, so I need to like pack on the weight. And back to what you're saying about not doing it for yourself, you gotta do it so that way, well, to some extent, other wrestlers can work with you too. I remember when I was being slung from one end of the ring to the other, and it was hard. Like, these guys, they didn't go easy on me. I should have really like said, because I was training and stuff. So it wasn't like I'm actually performing yet, but I should have like said, hey, you know, I don't really weigh that much. You know, like, yeah. So I need to kind of gain weight. Plus, over the last couple of weeks, I've got my black belt in a martial art named Choi Kwang Do, not to get that mistaken with Taekwondo. And it's a martial art I've been doing for a very, very long time, but it doesn't have a lot of application. So I've went to a few BJJ taster classes, and I need to get heavier in order for me to compete against those guys, in order for me to topple another man over. So going back to what you were saying, I do believe you got to have other people in your mind to know that you got to be in. Give yourself a reason as to why. Remember that Conor McGregor speech? You're a student as well, right? I'm pretty sure, I'm not saying you in particular, but loads of them have like issues when it comes to like mindlessly scrolling. my issue was mainly to do with motivational speeches. There was one that Conor McGregor there's one that kept coming up. That was by Conor McGregor, and he kept saying, "Don't do it for yourself. You've got family that believe in you. You not working on yourself is a disrespect to your family. It's a disrespect to people that have believed in you. So you obviously got to reinforce their belief and their faith in you in order for you to actually see it for yourself." You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, definitely, I get that, and I think sort of links to the sort of whole university like experience, because like we mentioned it, like I said, we've had a lot of discussions about stuff like this, but as we mentioned before, it's very important when it comes to what you're doing at university and maximizing your university experience, that you're ensuring that you're going out and you're doing things that will improve you, not necessarily like we said, because especially if you're like, for example, like an international student, your parents have sent you to another country to study, but it's more to do with the fact of like a lot of people say it, that being at university, or even like a recent graduate, you're at a period in your life where you basically don't have a lot of responsibility. You're not like I'd be surprised if you're like 20 and you own a house, but probably if you do. But he was basically like, a lot of people say that you've got to bear in mind that you as an individual, you don't have a lot of pressures. You're not necessarily like, you might be in a relationship, but you're not dealing with like marriage, you're not dealing with kids, most university students. And he was basically saying that for a lot of recent graduates, you have the opportunity to go out there and try new things. You have the opportunity to go out there and learn more about yourself. You've got the opportunity to test the waters, so to speak. So if you like, I know there are people that study a degree and they literally just like, you know what, I've left and I think this was utterly useless. One example of that is Samuel, as I mentioned before, who's a director at Pick Up the Mic. He studied politics for his undergraduate. He went and worked in the working world for about 2 or 3 years. And then he said, you know what, this isn't really what I want to do. His passion was psychology. He was always interested in psychology. He said that the mind really interested him. And he was just like, you know what, I actually don't want to do it anymore. So he took a break, went back to education from working, and now he works in that field. So I think for a lot of people, they feel like, they can't do that, or they're wasting their time on doing that. But it's, to be that young and to know it then is better than you're like 10, 20 years down the line and you've got a family. You have to basically stay in this job because the finances are needed to support your living style then. Whereas now, there are support services around you, especially when you're at university. We mentioned it in loads of episodes that there are so many support services on campus that can improve your experience, they can improve your health, they can better you as well. In the interest of time, because I can see that time is quickly going, we're gonna go on to one final thing, which I think sort of will sum up the episode as a whole, so to speak. So as a podcast team, like I said, we are very passionate about mental health. We talk about mental health, looking after yourself, the different, not like the things that can affect your mental health, but the different things that sort of have an influence on it. So whether this is your academics, the world, relationships, things like that. I wanted to ask you, what would be, and you don't have to do 3 if you've got one key tip, but for me, I always find it hard to name like a top thing. So I always go to 3. But what would be your advice regarding mental health to any student, whether they're just about to get to university, they're currently at university, or they're literally just about to graduate next month? What would be your one tip that you would give them to sort of think about as they what would be your one thing for them to think about?
Practice cold showering.
Good.
I've got quite a few things actually.
Okay. Let's go 3.
Cold showering, learning how to meditate. It took me quite a long time for me to actually get this right. Exercising as well. Mainly, I would say exercise in the morning, because then you're just refreshed, you're ready to go, you have more energy in you, and you're just more sharper throughout the day. That's from my experience. If you do it with if you do weights in the morning, like lift really heavy, for me personally, I don't really feel the benefits throughout the day, as in like me being sharp and stuff. I just feel pretty lethargic, to be fair. So I'd say probably do a HIIT workout. If you guys like yoga and if you guys are complaining about your lower back, I'm watching you. Yes, then do a bit of yoga too. Also, I've got quite a bit of advice for like what some of the athletes can spend their money on too.
Okay. Let's do one piece of advice for the athletes.
Massage gun.
Okay. That's not bad. My sister got one from my dad for Christmas, and like you said, it is it's a good investment, especially when like not even just for exercise. Like if I know there are some people that even like me, sometimes your joints might hurt, or you might do like a bit of heavy lifting at work, and you're sort of in a bit of pain. And having that is a good way to relax your muscles. It's a good investment long term.
I've got a bit of advice for you, actually.
Oh, go ahead.
So a lot of us as students tend to spend most of our day sitting down, listening to somebody else, or even just sitting down and writing stuff, or even on your laptop. So most of the time, your neck is looking like this. So that's mainly called a tech neck. So I would say, whilst you're taking a break from looking at your screens or just looking at your paper, give yourself a double chin like this. So you're going to feel it at the back of your neck and feel it over here. So then that way your posture is more aligned. Like I can kind of notice a little bit with you. You're like kind of slacking a little bit too, but it's not a thing that a lot of people really know. I got this on a podcast from Jordan Peterson a while back. So just stand up straight and obviously shoulders back, and then crack your neck like this. Not crack it, but just like push your neck back like this. Like give yourself a double chin. Do that around 10 times at a time. And yeah, you should be fine, especially for those that are studying medicine that are currently on campus right now. So, yeah. Okay.
Well, thank you very much for coming onto the podcast today. It was really great to learn more about yourself, the advice that you have for students regarding mental health and self-improvement, and also to learn more about, I guess, university. Before we sort of go to the outro and things like that, what would you say is the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Go through my Instagram, so it's Sachin Gupta HBS, and my YouTube channel. Jeffrey will put a link down below.
Yeah. So we'll include it as a link at the bottom and also appear on the screen as well. Because everything fun, we've had technical issues and have just found out that the camera was not recording. Thank you for coming back. If you appreciate, or if you really like this episode, like, comment, subscribe is always appreciated. Make sure you click the notification bell so you don't miss any of our other podcast episodes. If you really enjoyed this episode, then sharing about it and tagging us, Sachin, whatever way you share it. It's really important. We really truly appreciate it. And then finally, if you're looking to support pick up the mic, if you're interested in receiving some perks, then please do check out our link, our Patreon page. The link is in the description below.
Ooh, you have a Patreon page?
Yeah, we have a Patreon
page. What's inside of it?
We have one package because we think, especially with how the cost of things have gone, it's the easiest thing. But you get things like early access to our episodes. You get to, if they want to do a Q&A with us as a team, to sort of know more about what we do, and if they have particular questions they want to ask, they can do that as well. They're also able to get some of our exclusive content that we're sort of looking to do. So
exclusive.
Yeah, we're going to be through our gaming podcast called Game On. We're going to start doing live streams and stuff, and they'll have exclusive access to that. They'll be able to, if they want to join, if we're doing a multiplayer game or one where it's a 1v1, they'll be able to be the first people to sign up for that and get involved and join us if they're interested. So always check out the Patreon page. Links in the description below. That's a bye from us here. Thank you for coming to this episode, and we'll see you the next time when we go behind the curtain and learn about another new topic. So that's bye from us here, and take care.